and welcome back to Sew Granny Sew. So today we're going to work on our last little bit of our baby quilt. So we need to assemble these blocks together to make our last row. So all we're going to do is place those right sides together. We're going to pin those in place. As you can see, the ends are not going to meet up because they're not the same size, but I don't mind trimming a little off this line patch. So all I did to line this up on the other one was make sure that this is nice and centered in your blocks. And I think that is going to be just fine. So as you can see, it is a little more this way than that way. We'll double check it this side. I'll pull it back just a little bit. Okay. Then we'll go ahead and pin that in place. Kind of excited to get this done. Last day on this, I think, as far as the quilt top goes. So we'll just go ahead and bring that over to the sewing machine and make a 1/4 inch seam right there. And then we'll come back and we'll attach the other one the same way. And we'll pin that in place and also, once again, do a 1/4 inch seam up right along here. So I'll get that done and I'll meet you back here. Get that done, and I did get that iron flat. So as you can see, we are not lined up right here, so we need to trim on both squares. We need to trim that down, so I'm just going to pull that down a little bit. We'll take our ruler here. So I'm just going to put it up from that line to that line on these squares here, and make sure we got a nice straight edge here. We're just going to take our rotary cutter and trim that up. And now you can see that it's straight across, and we will do the same with this side. Okay. So now our row is nice and straight. So we'll go ahead and we'll get the quilt top out. So we're going to make this end just the opposite. So this one has the 4 patch here and the star there. So on this side, we're going to put the star at that end and the 4 patch at that end. So what we're going to do is we're going to put that over. The center of this is this square here. So if you want, you can even fold that in half to find the exact center of it. So just fold that in half and crease your fabric right there. And we know we want to line that up with that right there. Make sure your edges are flush. And we'll go ahead and slip a pin in that. And you can just work on one end at a time here. And you do want to make sure it's laying nice and flat. And then we just got to line up these edges over here. And put a pin in every once in a while there. Okay, so we'll bring that over to the sewing machine and we'll do a 1/4 inch seam all the way down that edge. I'll iron it flat and I'll meet you back here. Okay, so that's all done and iron flat. So as you can see, we have a little bit extra right there. So we'll go ahead and we'll square that up the same way we did the other one. I'm actually really excited to get this done. Okay, that one looks great. However, this one has a little bit on the end here. So we're going to go ahead and take that off. You want this to be as straight as possible for when you're putting your quilt together. Okay, that side looks good, and the last side looks good as well. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to measure this out. About 34 3/4 that way. And about 38 1/4 that way. So on that side that we're not quite, that's the width, 34 across. I think that'd be okay size for a baby, actually. I generally do 36 by 36, but I think that 34 and 3/4 is so close, and I think it's pretty good size. So, yeah, I think a baby could be wrapped up in that still. So we'll go ahead and work on the putting the sandwich together, so the backing and the batting. So I'll go ahead and get that stuff out. And show you how to cut it down to size. We'll pin that together and we'll go ahead and start that quilting. I looked for a backing for this, and I know this looks kind of Christmassy, but at the same time, it has all the colors in it, and I did want it to be a unisex baby blanket, and that would work for either or, and this would as well. So it's not too girly, but it's not too boyish. It's got the pinks and the purples and yellows and greens, and here it pulls out the or it's kind of an off red, but the color is in the fabric as well for the quilt front. So I think that, and it's got some of the yellows. It's got this blue, which is picked up out of there. I think I'm going to go ahead and go with this. I am using the 80/20 cotton poly batting. It's a very low loft, but yet it's got a lot of warmth to it. So perfect for a wintertime blanket. But they're nice. Blankets made with this are nice in the summer, cool summer's night as well. Get this ironed up, and then we'll lay this batting out and the backing, and we'll get a piece cut for that. So I will meet you back here. Okay, so we couldn't get it laid out good in the sewing room as I don't have enough space in there. So we've moved to the dining room table. We'll just do it here. So all I've done is I cut my fabric about 2 to 4 inches wider than my quilt top. Then my batting is a little bit bigger than that, not intentionally. It just turned out a little bit bigger than that because of the way I was cutting it. I just like to center my batting or center my quilt top so I got a little extra all the way around. Move that out real nice as we go. If you wanted to do this, I've done it on my kitchen floor before with a full-size quilt, and I just started with the backing right side down on the floor, and I just taped that onto the floor. That way it could not move. And you just got to play around with it until you get the layout, how you want it. When you quilt it in on the machine, you actually have a little move on your quilt, or between the layers. So I'm just making sure I have a little extra batting all the way around. And then we'll go ahead and fold that, flip that over. And we are going to smooth it out. Get our quilt top. And I'm just going to peek underneath and see where that fabric starts. You want to make sure, because there is a couple inches extra on each side, you want to make sure that you're good on the length, or in this case the width, and then you're good on this part of where it starts. So we're about that far out. Now if you wanted to make a self-binding border, of course you'd want to leave plenty enough to fold this. You'd cut your batting out of there, fold it over, and make a trim. I'm not doing that for trim on mine, on this particular one anyways. So then we're going to go ahead and we're going to give that fabric a taut pull just to make sure there's no wrinkles. Then the same with the batting. Pull that up and then smooth that out. Now it says to work from the center outward, which is right here. So we're just going to move that along a little bit and do that once again. Give the backing a taut pull both up and out. Okay, now that we've got it laying flat, we're going to go ahead and pin that center. So I am using these pins, and they have a bow at the bottom. They're meant for quilting. So you just poke it in, poke it back up, and pin it. So I think with my quilting, I am actually going to do the squares. So pinning in this area is just fine. It also gives me a good center point to pin at. And we'll just hit the middle of the windmills. Okay, now when you're pinning, you can feel whether they're going through all the fabric layers, the fabric and batting. Okay, now we know that that center row is just fine. There shouldn't be no puckers anywhere. Now, when you do the next one, you want to, once again, pull on your backing a little bit. Make sure that's nice and snug. Do the same with your batting. Make sure there's no wrinkles in the batting. So we're going to pin all four of the corners. The top two I did on the inside. And then the bottom two I did on the border trim. Okay, now we're going to carefully slide it around to the other way, and we're going to do the other side. If you didn't want to turn this, you could always just walk to the other side of wherever you're at, but for the reason of the camera being here, we're just going to flip it. Okay, now we're going to turn it over and check our pin job. So you don't want no puckers happening. So the direction of the pins is how I follow the fabric to make sure that it can have all the wrinkles taken out as you're quilting it. So you can see there's a pucker right there. I cannot remove that by smoothing it over. So all you're going to do, go from the underside, take that pin out, smooth that over. And it might mean, you know, if you start in the middle, it might mean that you have to remove 4 or 5 pins to get that smoothed over. But this process to get it all smoothed out is what guarantees that you're not going to have puckers on the back of your quilt. So we're just going to find that middle row, which was right here. And you can see I got a pucker there. So I'm going to work on this and get all the puckers out, and then I'll bring you back here. It's the most daunting part of making a quilt. So I would just suggest just start off small. This is the reason a lot of people bring theirs into a long armor. Is so they don't have to do this stuff. And then the quilting in, of course, you can only do so much on a regular domestic machine. You have to get one that can do free motion quilting to do out of a normal stitch in the ditch pattern or something like that. Some machines just don't offer it. So as you can see, it's laying pretty flat. This one's a little off here, so we'll go ahead and fix that. Other than that, I think we're good to go on starting the quilting. And once again, don't be afraid of this. Start with a nice small. You can start with a pot holder or even a placemat or a table runner, something small to get you used to it. And then after that point, you'll see, I mean, you'll be able to feel right away what's off and what's not off. It's not as scary as what you would think. It's actually pretty simple. You're just going to go through and, you know, flip it back and forth a couple times. Make sure everything's laying nice and flat. And once you get it all nice and flat, you're ready to start sewing, doing the top quilting. So now we have fully assembled the quilt top. We have all the pieces together. We got it sandwiched together with the backing, the batting, and the quilt top. And we are ready to quilt. So useful, guys. Give it a big thumbs up. That helps our channel grow. Thanks for viewing all. Have a great day. Bye-bye.